Hi everyone. In this video, let us discuss some of the basic aspects of Python programming language. We have to discuss keywords, identifiers, and variables in this video. Let us start with keywords. Keywords are the words which are defined in any programming language with some specific or predefined meaning. So these words are reserved with a special meaning so that they cannot be used as the names of the variables or functions, classes, objects and so on. Generally speaking, the keywords cannot be used as identifiers in any program. So what are the identifiers as we are going to discuss in the next topic? These are the names given for any of the entities in the programs. So now let us discuss some of the Python keywords. So we have a set of Python keywords listed here. False, await, except, for, def, global, if, or elif. So we have a lot of Python keywords available and these words are defined with specific meaning so they cannot be used as identifiers in our programs. At the same time, we have some special relaxation. So let us discuss a program that is going to use a keyword as an identifier. Let me create a variable if and that is going to have a value, for example 10. Now by seeing the first statement itself we can see that there is an error in this program. Now let me print the value of this variable. So print if. Now if I run this code, then you can come to know that this particular program is using or it's having an invalid syntax. Why it's invalid? Because it's using the keyword if as a name of a variable. So it's not possible to use a keyword as a name of a variable or function or object or class or array, whatever, right? At the same time, we have a small relaxation on this. What is that? Python is case sensitive. That's why we cannot use the keywords or reserved words as it is with the same case in our programs as identifiers. Suppose if you are changing the case of any of the keyword like this. For example, let me give if like this. Then now this is not an error, right? So now this if was used as a variable, but the case of that I is changed from lower to uppercase. If all the characters in this keyword are lowercase, then it is exactly a keyword. But now one of the characters is changed to uppercase. Now it is not a keyword anymore. Right? Let us run the code. And if you see the output, you can get the output. You see it's displaying the value 10. So now this is what actually the keywords are. So the keywords are the reserved words with special meaning. You cannot use it as identifiers. At the same time, if you are changing the case of the variables or keywords, then you can use them as the identifiers too. Now let us move to the next content. Identifiers. So what are identifiers? Identifiers are the names assigned to the variables, functions or methods or classes or any entity in the program. Now, the identifiers are just names, but we want to follow some rules when you are naming a particular entity. First thing is, an identifier should start with any uppercase or lowercase alphabetical character like A to Z uppercase or A to Z lowercase. Otherwise, it can start with a special character or only allowed special character, that is underscore. So now we can conclude that a particular identifier can start with any uppercase or lowercase alphabetical character or otherwise with an underscore. Second rule is the variable names or the identifiers can be of any length. That means the number of characters in an identifier can be up to any length, but it's limited to the memory space. At the same time, it is very important to notice that the name of the variable should be short enough so that it will be easy for the programmer to reuse it again and again in the program. At the same time, it should be meaningful. That means that variable name or the identifier should be or it should reflect the purpose of that entity for which it is used. For example, if you are going to create a variable to represent the name of a student, just giving a name A is not going to reflect what is exactly going to be stored into that variable. But if you use the variable name student underscore name, then you can, by whenever you are seeing that identifier, you can say that that variable is going to store the name of a student. So it's always good to have short and meaningful key identifiers. And next is, as we saw in the previous topic, a keyword or a reserved word cannot be an identifier. So any keyword or reserved word cannot be an identifier unless and until its case is different. Suppose if you are using the same case, that means all the characters in the keyword or that particular word are small case or lowercase, then that keyword cannot be used as the identifier. But if you are changing the case of at least one letter, then you can use it as an identifier. And next one is only special character that is allowed in any identifier is underscore. Suppose if your identifier is having any other special characters, then it is considered as an error. And last, space can't be the part of the identifier. Suppose in your identifier, if you are going to have multiple words, then this multiple words cannot be separated by using the space. Instead, you can use an underscore to separate the words. Now, let us discuss some of the valid and invalid identifiers. So now, for example, let me create an identifier starts with the digit 1. So 1 student name. One student name is equal to, for example, Kennedy, right? This is the name of the student. Now, if you run the code, you can find an error. So what is that? Invalid syntax, because this identifier starts with a digit as a first character. At the same time, if you are giving an underscore in front of this, then it's a valid identifier. Let us run the code again. Now if you see, there is no error shown in this program because this is starting with an underscore. So any variable name can start with an uppercase or lowercase alphabetical character or with underscore. At the same time, to separate the two words in this variable, for example, student name, if you are using space between the two words, then again it's an error, right? So let us run the code, and if you check that, it's showing invalid syntax because the space is not allowed when you are using or when you are creating an identifier, and the words cannot be separated using the space. Instead, there is a suggestion that you can use underscore to separate the words in an identifier. So now there is no error in this because the underscore is actually an allowed character in any identifier. Now let us check either any other special characters are allowed in this identifiers. Let me have $1 between the student and name. Now if you see running the code, then you can say that it's invalid syntax because the only special character that is allowed in identifiers are the underscores. So these are some of the things you want to consider when you are creating identifiers in your program. So now let us move to the next topic, that is variable. So what is a variable? Any value in a program that changes throughout the execution is called a variable. For example, if you consider the name of a person and the name of the person, or sorry, the age of a person, and the age of the person will vary year to year. So the variable age will take different value for different persons of age, and for every year it will take different value. So variable is a value in a program that changes throughout the execution. Now, every variable in a program is identified by a name, and as we discussed in the previous topic, so name of a variable is nothing but an identifier. So any name that is created by following the naming conventions or identifier conventions is considered as a variable name. What is important in Python is every data or every variable you are creating in a program is an object of a built-in data type class. So if you are creating a variable of with a value, for example 10, then it's of type integer. If you are creating a variable with a content, a collection of strings, then it is a string, right? So every variable in Python program is an object of a built-in data type class. Python does not expect the programmer to specify the data type as other programming languages do when a variable is getting declared. Since Python is a dynamically typed language, you can the data type of the variable is decided when some value, especially when the first value is stored or assigned to that particular variable. Now let us have a small example of this. For example, let me have a variable with a name variable and it's having the value 10. Now let me print the type of the variable. So type of variable, and now if you run the code, you can see its type is integer. We have not explicitly mentioned the data type of the variable. At the same time, depending upon the value you are supplying to that variable, its data type varies. Then we have another value in the same variable. For example, right now if you are checking the type of the variable, so print type of variable. So now if you check again, right, now you can see the same variable is now considered as a string because it has a string content. So like this, any variable is having its data type depending upon the value supplied to it. So that the Python is called as dynamically typed language. So in this video, we have discussed what are the variables, what are the identifiers, and what are the keywords. So I hope you understood these concepts, and happy programming. Thank you.